Lancashire Mining Museum is situated on the edge of Chatmoss. In an area once full of collieries lies the picturesque village of Astley Green. In the heart of the village stands Astley Green Colliery Museum, which, but for the foresight of Lancashire County Council and several leading figures within the community, would have suffered the same fate as the other collieries in the area: total demolition. It was the uniqueness of the 3,300 horsepower twin tandem compound steam winding engine that brought the demolition to a halt. As the result of the intervention, the museum houses Lancashire's only surviving headgear and engine house, both of which now have scheduled monument and listed building status. The museum occupies some 15 acres of the Astley Green Colliery site. To the south lies the Bridgewater Canal and Astley Moss, an important mossland site. The low-lying landscape ensures that the museum's 98 feet high lattice steel headgear can be seen for many miles, a fitting memorial to days now past. The museum is now run and maintained, on behalf of the community, by Lancashire Mining Museum, a registered charity based in Lancashire. The museum is open to all, with there being no charge for access. Apart from the steam winding engine and headgear, the museum houses many exhibits, not least of which is the collection of 28 colliery locomotives, the largest collection of its type in the United Kingdom. The colliery began its life in 1908 to exploit coal reserves in the South Lancashire coalfield. Had it not been for the increasing demand for coal, at that time, the project would not have been viable. The coal seams at Astley Green are very deep and overlain by 100 feet of wet and unstable ground. These factors made the sinking of the shaft a very expensive proposition. The novelty of many of the requirements tested the ingenuity of the engineers during the construction, so much so that a paper on the sinking of the shaft was presented to the Institute of Mining Engineers. The colliery had a lifespan of only 62 years, finally closing its gates in 1970. Because of its short and relatively recent history, a considerable number of written and photographic records have survived. This has enabled a detailed study to be made of the construction of the colliery and its subsequent operation. The engine house. The No. 1 engine house was the main building project after initial work on the shaft sinking. The roof girders were being placed in December 1910. The travelling crane of 20-ton capacity, which ran along the top of the walls, already being in position and in use, handling the various engine parts. The engine contracts for this, and the No. 2 engine were let to Yates and Tom of the Canal Ironworks, Blackburn, who had also supplied the initial boilers to the site. The ancillary gear was contracted out to Fraser and Chalmers of Erith, Kent, a GEC subsidiary. The total cost for the winding house in 1910 was £4,133, £400,000 today. The winding engine was completed at a total cost of £9,677, approx £1.035 million today. The winding engine, which served the No. 1 shaft, is the largest surviving colliery winding engine of its type in Europe. It has 4 cylinders in twin tandem compound arrangement, developing 3,300 horsepower at 58 revolutions per minute. The engine was installed in 1912 and took 2 years to complete. It is connected to a bicylindrical conical drum, which in turn was connected to the headgear pulleys to wind up the coal and wind down the miners and maintenance supplies. Most of the remainder of the colliery buildings and a second shaft with its gear have been destroyed, and the winding gear is the last surviving example in the Lancashire coalfield. The pit closed in 1970, and although the winding house, winding engine, and headgear were saved, it was not until 1983 that the site was leased to the museum, and work started on saving and restoring the winding engine and winding house, and getting it working again. This has been achieved by a small dedicated team of volunteers over the last 37 years, and it is now in working condition. The engine finally ran for the first time in 2013, almost 30 years to the day, when the Lancashire Mining Museum took over the site. Although now running on compressed air, it runs at regular intervals through the year. Keep an eye out on Facebook and the website for running days. The headgear. Astley Green Colliery Museum has the only surviving headgear on the Lancashire coalfield. It is made from wrought iron lattice girders with riveted plates at the joints. It has 2 large and 1 small wheel mounted at the top. It is nearly 30 meters, 98 feet high, and was built by Head Wrightson of Stockton-on-Tees in 1910-11 for Astley Green Colliery. The sheaves were 20 feet. in diameter, and the whole frame weighed 120 tons. The site is protected as a Grade 2 scheduled monument. An English Heritage Report puts the headgear in the at-risk category, and unless repairs and maintenance can be carried out urgently, it is likely that it will be lost forever. The structure has been deemed too unsafe for access, and unless sufficient funds can be obtained to repair and paint the wrought iron, the trustees feel the only alternative would be demolition. The pit closed in 1970. Plans are in place to upgrade the museum, to make it a centre for community activities, and to provide training in various skills that are being lost. The headgear has suffered with deterioration, and is now in need of significant repair to avoid any further deterioration. The headgear was placed on the English Heritage At-Risk Register in 2010. The report indicates it is in poor condition, with slow decay, with no solution agreed. Approaches have been made regarding grants and support for the repair and maintenance of the headgear, and although the project meets the criteria for funding, organizations would need proof that the museum and site would have a future, and could be developed to deliver positive benefits to the community in which it operates.